Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Girdhari Radha Girdhari Radhe Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jam Vishpad Paramahamsa Pravajikacharya Sotar Satashi Madesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Shil Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Jagat Guru Shil Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jam Vishpad Paramahamsa Pravajikacharya Sotar Satashi Shimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jam Vishpad Paramahamsa Shil Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jayam Vishpad Paramahamsa Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jayam Vishpad Paramahamsa Srila Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi. Our glories to the assembled devotees. Our glories to the assembled devotees. Our glories to the assembled devotees. Our glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastai Vallai Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Stay Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Vichari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're getting to hear from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5. Chapter 1, the activities of Maharaj Priyavrata. Text number 7. Okay. Ataha Bhagavan Adi Deva Itasya Guna Vishargasya Paribrimhananandana Vyavasita Sakala Jagat Abhiprayat Mayonir Akila Nigamani Jagana Pariveshtita Swabhavanaratara. Please repeat. Ata. Thus. Ha. Indeed. Bhagavan. The most powerful. Adideva. The first demigod. Etasya, of this universe. Guni Vishargasya, the creation of the three modes of material nature. Paribrimhana, the welfare. Anudhyana, always thinking of. Vyavasita, known. Sakala, whole. Jagat, of the universe. Avipraya, by whom the ultimate purpose. Atma, the supreme self. Yoni, whose source of birth. Akila, all. Nigama, by the Vedas. Nijigana, by personal associates. Pariveshtitaha, being surrounded. Sabhavanat, from his own abode. Avatatara, descended. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Shukadev Goswami continued. The first created being and most powerful demigod in this universe is Lord Brahma, who is always responsible for developing universal affairs. Born directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he dedicates his activities to the welfare of the entire universe, for he knows the purpose of the universal creation. the supremely powerful Lord Brahma, accompanied by his associates and the personified Vedas, left his own abode in the highest planetary system and descended to the place of Prince Priyavrata's meditation. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Self, Atma, is the source of everything, as explained in the Vedanta Sutra, Janmadya Yasha Yataha. Because Brahma was born directly from Lord Vishnu, he's called Atma Yoni. He's also called Bhagavan, although Bhagavan generally refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, or Lord Krishna. Sometimes great personalities, such as demigods like Lord Brahma, Narada, or Lord Shiva, are also addressed as Bhagavan because they carry out the purpose of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Brahma is called Bhagavan because he's the secondary creator of this universe. He's always thinking how to improve the situation of the conditioned souls who have come to the material world to enjoy material activities. For this reason, he disseminates the Vedic knowledge throughout the universe for everyone's guidance. Vedic knowledge is divided into two parts, Pravritti Marg and Nivritti Marg. Nivritti Marg is a path of negating sense enjoyment, and Pravritti Marg is the path by which the living entities are given a chance to enjoy, at the same time are directed in such a way that they can go back home, back to Godhead. Because ruling over this universe is a great responsibility, Brahma must force many Manus in different ages to take charge of universal affairs. Under each Manu there are different kings who also execute the purpose of Lord Brahma. It is understood from previous explanations that the father of Dhruva Maharaj, King Uttanapada, ruled over the universe because his elder brother Priyavrata practiced austerity from the very beginning of his life. Thus, up to the point of the Prachetas, the kings of the universe were all descendants of Uttanapada Maharaj. Since there were no suitable kings after the Prachetas, Swayambhuva Manu went to the Gandhamadana hill to bring back his eldest son Priyavrata, who was meditating there. Swayambhuva Manu requested Priyavrata to rule over the universe. When he refused, Lord Brahma descended from the supreme planetary system known as Satyaloka to request Priyavrata to accept the order. Lord Brahma did not come alone. He came with other great sages like Marichi, Atreya, and Vashishta to convince Priyavrata that it was necessary for him to follow the Vedic injunctions and accept the responsibility of ruling over the world. Lord Brahma also brought with him the personified Vedas, his constant associates. A significant word in this verse is Swabhavanat, indicating that Lord Brahma descended from his own abode. Every demigod has his own abode. Indra, the king of the demigods, has his own abode, as do Chandra, the lord of the moon planet, and Surya, the predominating deity of the sun planet. There are many millions of demigods, and the stars and planets are their respective homes. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Yanti Deva Vrta Devan. Those who worship the demigods go to their different planetary systems. Lord Brahma's abode, the highest planetary system, is called Satyaloka, or sometimes Brahmaloka. Brahmaloka usually refers to the spiritual world. The abode of Lord Brahma is Satyaloka. But because Lord Brahma resides there, it is also sometimes called Brahmaloka. If we could pray together, please. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Salakya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shiyata Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Purijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishabhana Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakopa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. A little parched after that wonderful kirtan. So, Lord Brahma, accompanied by his associates and the personified Vedas, left his own abode in the highest planetary system and descended to the place of Prince Priyavrata's meditation. 517. Oh, darn it. Okay, I can do it this way. Does anybody know where he was? Gandhamadana Hills. Any idea where the Gandhamadana Hills are? Excuse me? Pretty good. It's in Jambudweep. There's a big broad swipe for you. Yeah, I looked it up because we've heard this name before. It's not the only personality who is there. That's 16. I want 17. Descent of the River Ganges, chapter 17. The Ganges River, emanating from the lotus feet of the Lord, inundates the heavenly planets, especially the moon, and then flows through Brahmapuri atop Mount Meru. Now, some of you may not know about Mount Meru. This description of reality in the Srimad Bhagavatam blows away the tiny Mickey Mouse microscopes and telescopes that we conditioned souls in this world have. In fact, as far as I understand, the description of the universe in the fifth canto is often looking from the demigod's perspective down. So it's like we stand here on the shore of the Pacific Ocean and we see something. Vast body of water goes as far as the eye can see. But those who put on the scuba tanks and they go down into the Pacific Ocean, they have a whole nother view. It's a whole nother reality. Something that, most of us probably will not experience. You're not missing anything. But anyway, here it's explaining Mount Meru. Mount Meru is a giant, the biggest mountain. It's universal in scope. And atop the Mount Meru are, I suppose I could say, vacation homes for all the major demigods. Lord Brahma lives in Satyaloka, but he also has a place in Mount Meru, as do all the major demigods that you heard mentioned in the purport. So atop Mount Meru comes down the Ganga. Here the river divides into four branches known as Sita, Alakananda, Chakshu, and Bhadra, which flow down to the ocean of salt water. The branch known as Sita flows through Shekhara Parvata and Gandhamadana Parvata, or mountain. So it flows through Shekhara mountain and Gandhamadana mountain, and then flows down to Bhadrasva Varsha, where it mixes with the ocean of salt water in the west. So that gives you some idea. On the western side of the ocean, saltwater ocean, there is the Ganga flowing down into it after it has passed through the Bhadrasva Varsha, where the Gandhamadana mountain is. Now, to give you some idea, Jambudweep, they say, is extending throughout the middle part of the universe. Bharat Varsha is one of 8 Varshas that are there in Jambudweep, and we're the Varsha where you come and you get to accumulate karma to progress to higher, pious, more elevated realms, or you can degrade yourself. You have independence, and by your choice and your activities, you get the results. Basically speaking, all the other Varshas are like sub-heavenly planets. There's no karma being created. People are basically like on other planets, heavenly planets. They go there and they enjoy nice heavenly gardens. You know, we've heard the things like, so every time there's a description of these lakes and the flowers and the birds and the lotuses. I mean, we can hardly imagine. And that's just here in the Varshas. That's not on the higher planetary systems. What to speak of Brahmaloka? Oh my goodness. Brihad Bhagavatamrita gives quite a description of that. But in Bhadra Varsha, how do you say it? Bhadrava? Let me get it right. Bhadrasva Varsha, there is a devotee there. He's the son of Dharmaraj, and his name is Bhadrasrava. So he worships Hayagriva. And in the chapter 18 of the residents of Jambudweep offer prayers, you know, like Prahlad, he's offering prayers to Nrsingadev, Hanuman's offering prayers to Lord Ram and the different Varshas. So he's offering prayers to a form of the Lord called Hayagriva. And the reason why I'm bringing up, it's somewhat related to Lord Brahma coming down. He's not coming down alone. I mean, Lord Brahma is he has such a heavy responsibility to manage the affairs of the universe. The buck stops with him. He's definitely not a micromanager. He knows how to delegate. He's tried to get so many patriarchs to take up the service of populating the universe, of ruling the universe. Interestingly enough, in the purport it said sometimes he is forcing the Manus to take up responsibility and kings are to them. Now, I imagine it's not like the CIA going to foreign countries and saying, here, take this boatload of money to sell us your resources or to, pass these laws the way we want it to be. Or if you don't want to do that, we can always kill you. These things are documented and have gone on for decades. The dark side of the uncontrolled government in this country. But his convincing is his potency, his purity. My goodness, he's got the personified Vedas who always associate with him. You want some reference? Hey, Atharva Veda, what's that shloka? Boop, 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 boop. And there it is. So the Vedas are always with Lord Brahma. They were given to Lord Brahma by Lord Krishna in the very beginning. Vedic knowledge, spiritual transcendental knowledge. Of course, the Vedas cover the whole gamut from fruitive activities to, impersonal meditations, etc., to bhakti. But it's all leading to Krishna. It's all about service to Krishna. And so he has the ability when he brings his entourage. For example, he's in Brahmaloka and he's getting ready to get on his swan carrier to come down to Gandhamadana mountain. And people, oh, what's going on? Where are you going? It's an event. He's leaving Brahmaloka, something he doesn't do all the time, not that often actually, because he's daily offering sacrifices to the Mahapurusha, Lord Vishnu, right there on his own planet, daily accepting his offerings. But he's coming down here because we got a problem. Doesn't look like Priyavrata wants to take up the service, ruling the universe. It's not just the world. Prabhupada used that. It's more easily understood. I mean, this whole verse and purport is full of things that blow away the conception or the ideas of people outside the realm of Bhagavat culture. They have no idea about all these different things. So anyway, he comes down to convince Priyavrata. Now, I was making mention of the Vedas are always there with him. Well, there's a verse at the last verse of these prayers by Bhadrasva. At the end of the millennium, this is text 6, chapter 18, ignorance personified assumed the form of a demon, stole all the Vedas and took them down to the planet of Rasatala. The Supreme Lord, however, in his form of Hayagriva, retrieved the Vedas and returned them to Lord Brahma, where he begged for them. When he begged for them. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Supreme Lord, whose determination never fails. So we don't hear much about Hayagriva. He's a form of the Lord. You go to Laghu Bhagavatamrita, I swear you will learn so much. Every time you crack that book open, you're going to learn something new. Like, did you know that Lord Brahma is not always born from the lotus flower? Coming from Garbhodakshai Vishnu? Sometimes he's born from the Garbhodaka ocean itself. Or sometimes, Rupa Goswami says, from the elements wind or fire. The universe, the creation of the Lord, and the activities that go on there, they're inconceivable. They're incredible. So anyway, he's Atma Yoni. He is born, our Brahma is born from the lotus flower. Picture that, a lotus flower growing from the navel. You might have some lint or something in your belly button, but Narayan, without the help of Lakshmi, creates his son, Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma takes a nap. He sleeps at night, just like you and I. In the Bhagavad Gita 8th chapter, discusses the time, durations of his day and night, etc., etc. And it's nice. He is self-realized, God-realized. By the grace of the Lord, he's a pure Vaishnava. And so he's above the conditioned states of awake and sleeping. So he's, what would you say? He is existing and performing or dwelling on the platform of soul, of his actual identity and relationship with Krishna. So it's not uncommon when he sleeps. What's he going to do? He's not going to dream about this and that, past desires of sense gratification, unlimited dreams we've had. But he will dream of Krishna. So sometimes when he's sleeping, he's chanting these Vedas. And this demon, ignorance personified, this is Madhu. There's two brothers, Madhu and Kaitaba. I looked it up in the Puranic Encyclopedia. In either the Mahabharata, the Devi Purana, I forget which. 2 drops of water on the lotus flower. I believe this one was from the Bhagavatam. But 2 drops and one transformed into Madhu, and he was ignorance personified, as this verse collaborates, and his brother Kaitaba became passion personified, of demoniac mentality, very puffed up. So they saw the Vedas with Lord Brahma, and they snatched them. And they went down to Rasataloka thinking, well, we're going to exploit this knowledge, but for our own benefit. Not for glorification and service to Krishna, but utilize it how to squeeze more sense gratification and more control over this world. So what they didn't know was, let me read this 2nd canto, 7th chapter, 11th verse. Lord Brahma says, the Lord appeared as the Hayagriva incarnation in a sacrifice performed by me, Brahma. He's the personified sacrifices, and the hue of his body is golden. He's the personified Vedas as well. And the super soul of all demigods, when he breathed, all the sweet sounds of the Vedic hymns came out of his nostrils. So anyway, this is pastime because the form of Hayagriva is eternal. In fact, he even has a spiritual planet in the material universe. Did you know that? This planet is above, it's all in Laghu Bhagavatamrita. It's fantastic. And his planet is above the Patala planetary systems. So he's just a hop, skip, and jump away from Rasatala. So anyway, he goes and he kills Madhu and Kaitava, and he retrieves the Vedas, and he takes them back to Lord Brahma. He needs them in his service. That transcendental knowledge, that empowerment from transcendental knowledge. So this pastime takes place repeatedly in the lifetime of Brahma. Sometimes Lord Matsya, the fish, will save the Vedas from these demons. You have the pastime in the 8th canto where he saves the Vedas with Satyavrata Muni and the boat and the universal devastation, etc. It's all really fantastic. Uttama Shloka, fantastic stuff. So anyway, there's some relation there. Brahma is coming down with the Vedas. He's coming down with the 7 great sages. You know, they have their own planets circling around the pole star, Dhruvaloka. And we have this verse in the Opulence of the Absolute, chapter 10, text number 6. The 7 great sages, and before them the 4 other great sages, and the Manus, progenitors of mankind, come from me, Krishna speaking, born from my mind, and all the living beings populating the various planets descend from them. One who is factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power of mine engages in unalloyed devotional service. Of this there is no doubt. And this is the beauty of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It gives us more information than we'll even digest in this one tiny lifetime. But all supporting that Krishna is Swayam Bhagavan. It all comes from him. Now it's through the instrumentality, in this sense, 7 sages and the Kumaras before them and the Manus, etc. These are coming from Brahma. But he is the instrument in the hands of the Lord. He's known as Bhagavan. He's a guna avatar. He's a secondary creator. In this universe, he is the greatest. That's what the verse said. He is the greatest. And then you get out of this universe, you get to Sada Shiva or Shiva Loka, midway between matter and spirit. The planet's kind of cut in half. Then he's the greatest. And above Shiva, it's like all these statements in the scriptures calling Brahma the greatest, or Shiva the greatest, or Vishnu the greatest, or Krishna the greatest. They're all true, but up to a certain point. So in this world, Lord Brahma he's the most powerful. And it's interesting because even though the impersonalists, the Panchapasika worshippers would say, yeah, he's a manifestation of Brahman, we can worship him so we can realize we are Brahman. Get out of Maya and realize our godhood. So they may conceive that way, but hardly anybody worships Brahma. Most people worship Shiva. More people, I think, worship Shiva than they do Vishnu. We've heard why. You get your goodies quickly from Lord Shiva. He's very kind, asatosh, easily pleased. So there's a pastime. Do you know the pastime, how he was cursed and why Lord Brahma doesn't get worship in this world? So Lord Brahma, he's performing sacrifices all the time. So the sages were going to perform a sacrifice for him, and the time for the sacrifice was coming, and it was about to expire. Thank you. And Lord Brahma, being a householder, in this world, Saraswati has an expansion, and she is the wife of Lord Brahma. She's not the eternal Shakti of Vishnu in the kingdom of God, Parashakti, Parasaraswati, but she is an expansion of Saraswati, the goddess of learning in this world, and she is his wife. Well, she's making herself up, and she's getting all ready, and she's not aware of the time. Come on, you're killing me here. We got to start, or else the auspicious time is past, and then what? You know, the sacrifice will not have auspicious results, will not succeed in what we're endeavoring to do here. We want to please Vishnu. Well, she takes her sweet time, and finally the sages say, "Hey, we gotta act now or never." What to do? Well, we can give you another wife. Brahma can do these kind of things. I mean, heck, it went on just 200 years ago, you could say, in India. Polygamy. What to speak of previous ages when people had some qualities. But anyway, who would that be? Anyway, there's this wonderful girl named Gayatri. And if you think this universal topography is far out, listen to this pastime. So anyway, to purify her sufficiently so that she can be your wife and help you in the performance of this wonderful yajna for the Lord, we're going to pass her through the body of a cow. They put her in the mouth and brought her through and brought her out the back end. And the cow is all auspicious. The Vedas say the cow is the abode of all the different demigods. There is nothing inauspicious whatsoever about the cow. That's why the long-range thing, if you follow it to the end where veganism basically says there's no need for the farm animals. They have no purpose. Might as well kill them all. That's in writing and people's plans, you know. Bill Gates buying all the farmland more than anybody else with the proposal of we're going to get rid of the dairy industry and the cattle industry and we're just going to eat soy burgers. GMO perfected soy meat. Huh? Yes, that's another thing. I won't get into veganism. I just had to say how auspicious the cow is. You can't, unless you accept Scripture, you have no clue. Even if you just simply look, a hard-hearted person just watches a cow licking its calf, a dairy cow. Particularly one who's being cared for, not abused, etc. Prabhupada says in the purport in the Bhagavatam, automatically the mind becomes peaceful. You can't say that about every animal. I mean, some animals are cute, but a cow is amazing. All auspiciousness around the cow and service to the cows. Krishna loves the cows. So anyway, she's brought through the cow and she performs the yajna and with the assisting Lord Brahma. And then right when they're about finished, here comes Saraswati. Do, 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 do. And what? You started without me? Who is this? Who's she? This is your co-wife, Gayatri. Holy smokes, he blows a gasket. She curses him. I curse you that you will not be worshipped on this planet. And basically in Pushkar there is a nice temple of Lord Brahma, and he's worshipped there. And interestingly enough, if you go to Thailand, practically on every street corner you'll see a little tiny pagoda temple with Brahma, who has 4 heads and 8 arms, and is considered a creator. So somehow or other, they're worshiping Brahma, which we can assume is Brahma, and so he's getting some recognition there. But anyway, he's a pure Vaishnava. He doesn't care about any and all that. He simply wants to serve Krishna. That is the essence of the consciousness of Lord Brahma, and he's coming down to convince Priyavrata, take up the service. Now he says so smiling and with full conviction. It's just like sometimes you're in the presence of devotees that, they say something, it's like there's no question. that's reality. You accept it. It is reality for the pure devotees. But I'll give you an example of just charisma. It was a devotee who was taking part, had incredible responsibilities he was executing for the pleasure of Prabhupada, a leader, etc. His name was Bhagavan, and I was living in the chateau at the time in late 76 before going to India in 77. I was helping out with the Gurukula there, and we were complaining that, I know you're trying to save money, but it's colder than an iceberg here in the children's ashram, and we need heaters so that we can keep them healthy. So Bhagavan Das, he says, all right, well, I'll come on down and check it out. So he comes down to the ashram wearing a short sleeve kurta in the middle of the winter. And he walks in, Hare Krishna. So what's the problem? Well, it's cold. He goes, what do you say? What are you talking about? It's not cold in here. It's perfect. And by golly, if when he didn't say that, all of a sudden, I'm feeling warm. We're like looking at each other like, God, I think he's right. It's not cold in here. Then as soon as he walks out the door, that's a personal experience of influence. Ultimately, this comes from Krishna, the most influential person. Brahma being his representative, that's why one reason why he's known as Bhagavan. I have to go back to the exact line in the purport, but let's see, text 7 says, because he's carrying out the purpose of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he comes down with a smile and with complete conviction. You're not going to be touched by Maya taking up the management of the universe. How does he know? It's a pretty big statement. I liked how Advaita Prabhu yesterday said, we can hardly handle our own temple affairs, and you're talking about, anyway. Universal management? Holy smokes. So anyway, in Brahma Samhita, it was originally, I believe, like 99, 100 chapters. Lord Chaitanya found one chapter, the 5th chapter of the Brahma Samhita, and found it so valuable that he had it copied and he took it back to Puri so all the devotees could then copy it and understand, relish this transcendental knowledge given by Brahma. What a treatise on the glorification of Govinda, Krishna. All the philosophies there in Brahma Samhita. So anyway, after Brahma received his transcendental knowledge, after he meditated, he glorified the Lord, etc., and he wants to carry on with his service, which is creating. So in text number 57 of Brahma Samhita, on hearing these hymns containing the essence of the truth, the Supreme Lord Krishna said to Brahma, Brahma, if you experience the inclination to create offspring by being endowed with the real knowledge of the glory of Godhead, listen, my beloved, from me to the science set forth in the following 5 shlokas, 5 verses. When the pure spiritual experience, the pure spiritual existence is excited by means of cognition and service, or bhakti. So you got Chit Shakti, you got Ladani Shakti. When it's excited by means of cognition and service, super excellent, unalloyed devotion characterized by love of Godhead is awakened towards Krishna, the beloved of all souls. And that's why I've said in the past, we have tiny, minute particles, quantity of the same Satchidananda potencies of Krishna. But unless the Ananda, Ladani Shakti descends, the mercy of Radha and Krishna, through the disciplic succession to the aspirant devotee, then it's not enough on our own simply to aspire, to endeavor. There has to be the mercy descending. Then love of God can manifest. So he continues, these preliminary practices of devotion, sadhana bhakti, are conducive to the realization of loving devotion, prema bhakti. Loving devotion, than whom there is no superior well-being, who goes hand in hand with the attainment of the exclusive state of supreme bliss, and who can lead to myself. Interesting enough, in the purport, it describes, not this one, but the next one or what have you, but this practice. We're all trying to practice sadhana bhakti to the best of our ability, hopefully with the understanding this is to help us cultivate and manifest within ourselves the desire to lovingly, eternally, selflessly serve the Lord. We want to reawaken our love for Him and reciprocate eternally with Him. So, that practice is described as the offenseless chanting of the holy names and all the limbs of bhakti. The important point is made, offenseless chanting. Because as long as we don't get to the point of offenseless chanting, we're not going to be steady in our service. Have the ups and downs and the anartha nivritti, and we can get stuck in the anartha nivritti stage for decades, lifetimes. It is a self-surrendering process that one has to come to the realization, factually convinced, Krishna is my worshipful Lord and I simply want to serve Him. There's nothing else worth any value. Third verse, I believe. Abandoning all meritorious performances, so that's all the subsidiary, sarva dharma prityaja mam ekam sharanam vraja. Serve me with faith. The realization will correspond to the nature of one's faith. The people of the world act ceaselessly in pursuance of some ideal. By meditating on me, by means of those deeds, one will obtain devotion characterized by love and the shape of the supreme service. So faith is shraddha to prem. That really is the development of complete faith in service or in our relationship with Krishna. So according to the level we are practicing Krishna consciousness in, to that degree, we will have realization of Krishna. Now people, Balaram Prabhu was speaking last night, have so many goals in life, have so many concepts of what is going to make us happy. So they ceaselessly act in that way. And so many engagements, material activities are going on. But Krishna is telling Brahma that just do the duties, engage in the activities, and meditate upon me. Do them for my pleasure while thinking of me. This is the essence of Krishna consciousness. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji imam namaskar. Always think of me. And then yet karosi yadasnasni. Whatever you do, just do it for my pleasure. Now there are levels to that. Even in that activity of sadhana bhakti where we're trying to please Krishna, and in the purport it says, let's see if I've got the right placement. Yeah, this is interesting. It's made mention of gona, bhakti, gona, dharma, which means it's the subsidiary aspect. It's a marginal aspect. Like you have, when your bhakti is mixed with anything other than the sole purpose of wanting to please Krishna, then that's a subsidiary example. And even in performing bhakti, sadhana bhakti, it talks. The Lord is instructed in the verse and in the purport. It's saying that we have to come to that platform. That is where you will capture me. That is where you will be fully empowered to engage in any and all activities of this world and not be touched or influenced whatsoever. And Ishavasya idam sarvam yat kinchit jagatam. Jagat tena tvaktena bunjita magrihad kasya swadinam. The Isha Upanishad is being quoted that if you can learn how to perform your activities for the pleasure of Krishna, you will not accumulate any karma, even if you live for centuries. You'll be free by the grace of Krishna. Ham tam sarva papabhyo mokshasya ma suchaha. And that's what we're all looking for. The very first benefit in practicing Krishna consciousness is that the sinful reactions are dissipated. The misery it's pulled back. We become relieved from such heavy burden of karma when one enters into the relationship of service with the spiritual master in the formal heart-to-heart contract. And that's just to give us a taste. Come on. According to the standard of your surrender, to that degree you'll experience the bliss. That's what we heard in that last verse. And then it says here, so let the attainment of love for Krishna by the practice of pure devotion through the knowledge of their mutual true relationships that subsist between the living entity, material nature, and Krishna, based on the principle of inconceivable simultaneous distinction and non-difference, be my instruction for being handed down in the order of spiritual preceptional succession in your community. Sri Brahma Sampradaya. In other words, he's saying, preach Krishna consciousness, practice Krishna consciousness. And it is based on Lord Chaitanya's understanding that everything is inconceivably, simultaneously one with and different from the Lord. Therefore, everything is the Lord, and everything belongs to the Lord, and everything is to be utilized in the service of the Lord. This is what the Lord is deputing Lord Brahma to do. That's the actual purpose of the universe. The conditioned souls are trying to enjoy, and he's trying to give them spiritual knowledge so that, okay, you can enjoy to some regulated way. This is the karma Khanda section of the Vedas, where they will engage in worship of demigods, and they'll follow the rules and the regulations. And when they're fortunate, they'll get some association where they realize, oh, instead of the demigods, we should be worshiping Vishnu. Then it turns into karma yoga. And from that karma yoga, then, you can become purified. You can, some detachment. The Nivritti Marg was mentioned after that preliminary Pravritti Marg. And from detachment, then you can selflessly become absorbed in the service of the Lord. Without becoming attached to the service of the Lord, there is no way that you will become detached from the allurements of this material world. You have to have the higher taste from Drisvana and Agartate. Have to be safe, to always be protected. So, one last thing. Interesting enough, Bhaktivinoda Thakur made a prediction wherein he said that the time will come where all four sampradayas will merge into one, and it will be this Gaudiya, Madhva, Brahma Sampradaya. And those words actually are mine, saying Gaudiya, Madhva Gaudiya. He said the Brahma Sampradaya. But here we are seeing that the perfection of Lord Brahma's Sampradaya is in the appearance of Lord Chaitanya and his teachings. So everyone, we've got a lot of work cut out for us to impress and purify the other Vaishnavas, so that they can take up the worship of Gauranga, of Krishna, with the understanding of the Govinda Bhashya, Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. So are there any questions or comments?
Just one note. This is not an earth-shattering fact, but the verse you read about the descent of the Ganges, remember that?
It's the introduction I read. But
Yeah, and that's where Gandhamara Hill is, where the Sita flows through Brahmapuri atop Mount Meru down. These mountains are like a bunch of filaments from the Kesharachala mountain. Ganges falls to the peak of Gandhamadana mountain and then flows into the land of Bhadrashra Varsha. Finally, it reaches the ocean of the salt water in the west. It actually reaches in the east. That's a mistake in the text. Just let me let you know. East. Should say east.
Oh, so it's the eastern side. Well, that's good to hear because it had west twice.
I know. It had it in the word by words, too. Yeah.
So it's the east.
Yeah.
That's good to know. I mean, another little thing was you obviously were wondering about it when I had a verse previously saying that Uttanapad was the oldest son. That was 4:31:26. I think it was in the purport. Was it in the verse or just the purport? (4:31:26). But in today's verse, it's being emphasized more than once that Priyavrata is the eldest. So that's an example how a fault finder just see, what does Prabhupada know? Can't even figure out is Uttanapad or Priyavrata the eldest son. People can. You might think I'm making something much ado out of nothing, but this is the envious. Am I right? This is the envious nature of the conditioned soul. That if you want to find fault, there's going to be plenty of opportunity to do so, even with pure Vaishnavas. Yes, Balaram Prabhu.
I'm just wondering, in the first, or is it I don't know, second, but when Lord Brahma he meets Krishna, right? Says he shakes his hand and right, no, Bhagavatam, but that's not exactly right. Or what? Oh, it is. Right? I've heard it was mentioned that Krishna said that you won't fall into illusion, and then some time passed, and there was this whole episode of him him engaged in the process of creation, and then they had that thing where with his daughter and this and that. And people, so just trying to understand that that idea of Krishna saying, "Oh, you won't fall into delusion," then some time passing, and then there's some difficulties. So maybe you could comment on that.
The sun coming in contact with urine is not contaminated. The great Ishwara's activities cannot be imitated. Practically speaking, by the common man, they can't even be understood. So, perfect doesn't mean never creating mistake or having some difficulty, falling from the standard. But what it means is that you never give up the standard. Who among us, practicing the levels of sadhana bhakti that we are, hasn't had some thought of sex desire or a dream of sex or this or that? Who hasn't? But has it affected your determination to execute Krishna consciousness? No. It's just a bubble coming up from the swamp. So Lord Brahma, he had the same thing. Or the Madhvas won't even accommodate. They don't even want to discuss it, is his bewilderment with Krishna. When in reality, it was just for a moment. He takes the cows and the cowherd boys for a moment. I mean, my God, if you're going to hang a man for a moment's discretion, indiscretion, that's pretty rough. So his perfection is that he is surrendered at the lotus feet of the Lord and simply wants to engage in this service responsibly. There's that nice pastime of Prabhupada. There's going to be an important person going to Bhagaji's. Bhagaji lives just like a couple of blocks away from Prabhupada, but he couldn't walk. So you need to get the car. So he tells Hari, arrange for the car so that we can go and we can have the lunch at this proper time to meet the man. So he goes and tells, another devotee. So when it's time to go, he's come out, finished the massage, this and that. He delegated, right? And then there's no car. He freaks out. He starts running around. Oh, man, what am I going to do? Because he knows Prabhupada wants to be on time. He wants to get to this meeting, important person. And so the Sankirtan car arrives just at that time from Agra. Oh, thank God. So He runs in. You have a car? Yes, we have a car. And then they come out, and then the back tire goes flat. It's a flat tire. And then they're like, what do we do? Change the tire, this or that. And Prabhupada is just, he's like, useless. And the point, and I'll finish up the humorous ending of the pastime in relationship to the car. But when Srila Prabhupada gave a service to somebody, it was that person's responsibility. Now, that person may delegate to somebody else, but you're responsible for making sure the delegation is executed. It's a really important part. Because anybody who was given a service by Prabhupada and that said, I asked so-and-so and they didn't do it, Prabhupada didn't cut them any slack. No, it's your fault. You're the fool. You're inept. And so, Hari Sari just took the brunt of the chastisement. And finally, Prabhupada said, let's just get in. And they drove with the flat. But it relates to Lord Brahma. He has such a intense responsibility. He's 50 years old now. First day of the first month of his 50th, 51st year. Vedically speaking, he's passed through 50 years. And this is all going on. And as far as I understand, it's not like Vanaprastha. He's going to have that duty his entire 100 years. This is a minor correction, if I may. You gave me a nice compliment near the end. Householder life doesn't have to be a detriment, should not be a detriment in Krishna consciousness. Same with management. But I'm no longer in the household ashram. By Krishna's grace, Chatur and I are in the Vanaprastha ashram. So in ISKCON, they don't, you'll be given cloth, you'll have a ceremony. They haven't gotten to the point of trying to support and spotlight the necessity of this step in life. Have that vow or that consciousness, that conscious decision, certainly since coming back from Mayapur with the circumstances that be. So anyway, just a minor correction, I don't mind. And this is a good one too. Have I mentioned this? Balaram Prabhu is the one who turned me on to this, but this I'd like planting the seed because I'd like it to get some momentum somewhere. But somehow or other, it appears that Vanaprasthas are called Vanacharis. At least Dhanavir Goswami and others have taken this up, Jivananda, etc., etc. Personally, I don't relate with it. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, you know what he called his Vanaprastha sannyasis? Balaram knows. He called them so-and-so Das Vrajvasi. Now, what a nicer ring than Vanachari. And you know why he called them Vrajvasis? Because Vanaprastha means you're supposed to go to the forest to perform austerities for exclusive absorption in bhakti. Well, what forest stick with me, what forest do the Gaudiya Vaishnavas want to go to? Vraj. There is no other forest. So Vrajvasi. What a nice thing. All his Vanaprastha disciples he addressed as so-and-so Das Vrajvasi. So anyway, spread it, network. I'm pushing it. Not personally, I'm not saying that like me, but I'd like to somehow or other, it's an important aspect that Vaish is considering it also. Vaisheshika Prabhu, about we got to put some emphasis here. This has to be understood and appreciated. The necessity. You explained nicely yesterday, Davida Prabhu. So, on that note, Srila Prabhupada. Oh, you got a point? You got a microphone? All right, wonderful.
Maybe we could end with this.
Well, you can lead, but I'll entertain Cletus.
Okay, go ahead. The Balaram brought up the point. Well, what about Brahma? He went after his daughter and this and that. And he mistook Krishna for a little boy and like that. So stole the calves and boys. So a verse came to mind, as it often does. And this is, Prabhupada quotes this verse in the first canto in the 19th chapter. I forget which verse. It's like one of the only verses that he quotes, actually gives a Sanskrit in the purport, in the first canto. So this is the verse. And interesting enough, just to, because my mind is always on the editing. When I was working on the first canto and looking to see if there's any little things that need to be fixed up, I said, this purport ends with the verse. And what about the translation? So I looked in the Delhi Bhagavatam, and he gave a nice translation, which we returned to the.
Nice.
So this is a verse, and it's exactly pertinent. It's in the 11th canto, 5th chapter. I think this is still the 9 Yogendras, maybe not. Swapada moolam bhajatak priyasya tsakyanya bhava sahari paresha. Vikarma yakcho patitam katanchid dunoti sarvam vidisani vishta. One who has given up all other engagements and has taken full shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Hari, Supreme Personality Godhead, is very dear to the Lord. Indeed, if such a surrendered soul accidentally commits some sinful activity, the Lord, who is seated within everyone's heart, immediately takes away the reaction to such sin. And the word is dunoti, which means cleansing. He completely cleans it. So that's, pertinent not just to Brahma, but to all sincere Vaishnavas who go through some trouble and are still pressing on, that Krishna helps cleanse it away. So it's not like, this is it,
reference,
black mark, you're finished, no, it's like...
Or even Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
Abhichet Sudaraja. If you want to leave, you certainly may. Cletus Prabhu, you have some questions? I'll try and give a basic answer.
Thank you. I just had a real basic question that probably needs to be explained a little bit more clear, because
Try to just state the question and see if it needs explanation.
can you explain what does it mean by Lord Brahma being the Lord of the universal affairs? What does that mean?
Lord, it's like a title. He's not the Lord like we have in Judeo-Christian terms, that he is Lord Brahma. He's the representative of Krishna. He's a incarnation of Krishna. He's performing the work of Krishna. So he deserves the title Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva. Those two guna avatars are also called Lord. You don't get the title with Chandra or Indra or Surya. Lord Surya. You just don't hear it with anybody else, do you? Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva. Is that succinct? Does that make sense? He's an incarnation of the Lord, deputed, to do the Lord's work, and empowered to do it, and as such he's known as Lord Brahma. He's the servant Lord Brahma. Srila Prabhupada K. Grantaraj.